Hey guys, how's it? Hope you guys are good. I want to do something a bit different in this video. I actually want to go over these tech trees. I want to do a few episodes where I go over these tech trees for the servers. Now I've got the standard game. I don't got the some of these unlocks. So I've got a lot of these different servers locked. But the nice thing about the tech tree is even if they're locked, you can still go into the tech tree and get to understand what sort of the inner workings of the service. And sometimes just for myself, I play with a few servers. I play with China, play with Abbasid, Mali, Ottomans, and Rus. And sometimes I do get I do lose a little bit of track in terms of what they can, what they can't do. So I wanted to kind of go over it, and even for myself, if I watch this video back again, just to remind myself, okay, what is the strengths and weaknesses of the server? Now, for this case, I actually want to go over Rus's one. I might just opt between a couple of other servers just to do comparisons, but I'm interested in what Rus can do. So I'm literally going to go read this sort of section by section, deep dive a little bit in a couple in terms of my understanding how to read this. Also, when I joined the game initially, I saw this over there, but it's kind of overwhelming to understand like what's going on here. Now that I've played the game for a good couple of months, reading this makes a lot more sense. So if you're somebody that's looking at this for the first time and you've gone in there, you've probably gone through the same experience I have, where you sort of went in there, things are a little bit confusing over here. What's actually going on in the side with the grid? So I'll try to explain it to give you that stepping stone when you are just sort of joining the game, understanding sort of what they mean and sort of how they triage into one another. So I'll start quickly with the rules. And other than the background of the rules do have a couple of unique units and bonuses that I'll quickly talk about. I think is valuable going into. The one is the fort, the fortress, right? So they call it a wooden fortress. I think I normally call it a outpost. It's um, yeah. So the outpost is that thing that you build where you can sort of put your soldiers in there as an outpost, as a garrison oversight. They don't have the outposts. In fact, what they do have is their outpost gets replaced by what they call a wooden fortress. Um, does very similar things. The only big differences there is that it's got 100% health default. They've got 3 garrison slots. Now with the wooden fortress, unlike the normal outpost, the outpost you can normally sort of decorate it with you, or you can upgrade it to a stone fort outpost. Where the wooden fortress you can't do that. I'm actually a big fan of the stone upgrade. In fact, I tend to do that stone upgrade when I'm playing with a lot of other civs quite a lot. But you can't do it with the wooden fortress, and it's kind of annoying late game where you've got a lot of money, you've got a lot of funds, especially for us who plays a lot of 2vs, 3vs, 4v4s. You do tend to go late game, and you want to be able to upgrade your outposts, and it's kind of a bit annoying in the long game for you to do it with ruse. Short game, yeah, it's okay to have such a powerful outpost there, and it also houses up to 8 um, units opposed to 5, which is what the normal outpost does. So it's also a nice way when you're being rushed to something, just put your villagers inside of those outposts, and they can get that 3 extra garrison slots, which is quite nice to wild off those early rushes. But late game it becomes a problem. Um, the other thing they can, unlike the outpost where you can actually put a cannon on them for most serves, the wooden fortress you can't do that. The best you've got with the wooden fortress is the springled. I don't know why they've made that limitation. I really hope they do something more there. But yeah, it's kind of annoying that also late game. But yeah, you do get the sprinkled attachment that you can put to your outpost, but you can't put the cannon on. Another thing they've got for those who haven't played with Roost, they've got these hunting cabins that replaces the normal mill. I think the hunting cabins is about 15 hood more expensive. Let's see if I can find an example of the hunting cabin? I don't think I can. No. Yeah, I won't be able to. I think they're 15 more expensive. Um, the cool thing about the hunting cabin is so the normal mill costs you 50 wood. Hunting cabin, I think, costs you 75 wood. I could be wrong. Maybe it does cost 50. But the cool thing about the hunting cabins is you can build scouts from it, which is quite nice because you don't want to use the time it takes for you to build a villager from your um, town center, especially at the start of the game. So this is a nice way to get more scouts out early game, so you can sort of scout all over the place, or even mid game, so you can sort of put your scouts on on the what's that upgrade called? The one where you can sort of hunt the um, yeah, the one where you can gather the professional scouts. In other words, they can pick up meat throughout the map. So that's a nice thing about the hunting cabins. Also, the nice bonus with RUS is I'm not sure if they mention it here, but the moment you drop meat at either your town center or these hunting cabins, you get an additional 1 gold for every meat you drop. So for every round that you do the drop, so typically at the start, the villager drops like 10 meat, right? When he's delivering the cutting up the meat. So yeah, you get 1 additional gold as part of that. Another thing about them, the French, the rules, they get an early night. So at feudal age, after your first upgrade, your first age up building, you get an early night. Typically, you get that in the second age up. They've got the exact same stats as your base night across most of your other servers. So yeah, nice way to sort of rush early. And I think it's something that you may want to look at into your game, because I typically don't tend to go on gold a bit when I'm playing with Roos. I tend to go more on meat and then sort of transition to wood. If you are doing an early rush, it might be good to actually go in and put some units on gold to generate these early nights. I think you might find it valuable. It happened to me where I think it would have been valuable to do it in one game. I never did so. So yeah, something you want to potentially look out for. Yeah, then the other thing is they get this Lodia construction way, which is kind of cool, because what you can do is any type of ship that you build from your docks, you can pretty much convert them into any other type of ship. I think there's a fee involved with doing the conversion, but like if you transition in the sea game where you want to build a whole lot of uh, ships to collect, fish, and then you sort of transitioning over to a more of attacking game, you can do that by just simply converting those fish collection boats to something else. So that's quite nice. Oh, then the other one is the bounty system. So basically, the bounty system is works that whenever you gathering animals earns a bounty of gold, and reaching a certain threshold of that bounty provides you with certain bonuses to villages and economic and hunting cabins, which is quite cool. So what it says is pretty much whenever you not just hunt the animals, I don't think it applies to when you actually hunt them, I hunt them. I think it's when you're actually gathering food from them, you gain a bounty. All right. And the moment your bounty hits 100, you get these benefits. Your hunting cabins generate 10% more gold, and you gather 10% more food from your villages, and so forth. So it's always at your advantage as a rules player to try to gather more meat in the game. And that's why the dynamics are there, so you can use your hunting cabins, generate your scouts, so that you can play that professional scout game, so you can bring that food over to you, and that sort of generally increases your passive income from your hunting cabins over time, together with the food gather rate of your villages. Another cool thing is that um, when you have a wooden fortress that's placed close to your um, lumber camp and next to your town center, your villagers drop off 20% more wood. So that's quite nice. It's quite a nice buff. And that's why I think, generally speaking, when I'm playing with Ruse, I tend to get more wood collected than most of the opponents or teammates. inside the game. Now, this hunting cabin bonus that you're talking about here generates 10% more and 15 and 20% more gold, right? So the hunting cabin generates gold the moment you put it next to a tree line or a set of trees. What it does is, and I'm hoping I explained this nicely because you can watch a couple of videos on it. But once you put the hunting cabin next to trees, all the trees that falls within a certain sort of radius around the hunting cabin, those trees that fall within there earns you, you know, that particular set of passive gold. I'm not sure what the formula is, but typically, if you put it next to a tree line, there's a circle of trees. You put it next to a tree line, on the left side of the or on the one side of the hunting cabin, there won't be trees. So in a typical setup, when you place the hunting cabin next to a tree line, you generate anywhere between 15 to 20 gold per minute. And that's your typical average that you'll find when you're placing these hunting cabins. The another thing about the hunting cabins, you can't place them. So the moment an hunting cabin consumes a certain set of trees, you can't place another one there. It you can, but it won't sort of get a bonus. So once a set of trees are allocated to a hunting cabin, they another hunting cabin can't consume that bonuses. Okay. Anyway, so some unique units to them. So you'll see there's two unique units here called the militia Halberdier, Halberdier, and this militia hand cannoner. Okay, so these two ones over here are not part of your standard. You can't build these units. Okay, these units you only get once you deploy a specific age up building, which is called this Kremlin. Once you have the Kremlin, you can generate either. So once you create a Kremlin, there is this feature in the Kremlin where you can sort of spawn a whole lot of militia. Okay, it's kind of a nice way if you're being rushed to something. You can hit this militia button, and then depending on which age you are in, it you either choose or it auto generates. I think it actually auto generates you that particular militia. So if you're in age 2, the feudal age, you will typically get like whatever amount of you can either generate one of these militia, or you can generate, to the maximum amount of resources you have, and it will generate those sort of militias for you, and you can use them to defend your base. And if you're in the third age, the castle age, you can pretty much generate hand cannoners. Okay, so those two units talked about them. You can see what the strengths or benefits are there. I don't typically use them, so yeah. Warrior monks, quite nice. So warrior monks, I think they might be Knights template also has one like this. I could be wrong, but warrior monks, I haven't seen them in any other set that I'm able to play with, and they pretty much, yeah, your typical monks, but they're mounted on horses and they can fight. It's quite cool. So the one thing that's quite nice about these warrior monks is they're reasonably fast. They're very fast. They're horses. They're mounted horses. So you can actually take. I typically find that playing with RUS, it's easy for me to get the relics all over the map because these warrior monks are literally fast. So I typically do that the moment I get my warrior monk or my monk uh, my monk or sorry, what do you call it? A church. There's a church monastery. Once you get your monastery up, I typically generate a couple of warrior monks, send them out to the map, collect as much relics as I can. Now, while we're on the warrior monk, I'll talk about a couple of other abilities that this warrior monk has. Okay, so this warrior monk has got something called the a knight's sorry what do you call it, not divine light, it's called a blessing something. Geez, what is the name correct term for this thing? Let me just quickly check here. I think it's called warrior's blessing or something like that. I don't know what it's called. It's called warrior's blessing or something's blessing. All right, saint's blessing. It's called saint's blessing. Yes. So what saint's blessing does is the moment this warrior monk is part of your typical cavalry group, right? The moment the warrior monk engages in battle, you get a certain amount of units around the warrior gains an additional, I think it's 10 plus attack points during that time period. It's either plus 10, oh, could be wrong, could be even plus 1, plus 2, I don't know what it is, but they get an additional amount of melee points, once they're in the range, which is quite cool. So there's other things that you get unique to the upgrade tree for that affects these warrior monks. So the one is called favor, and basically what it does, it improves the range of Saint's Blessing by 5 tiles. So I think by default, the Saint's Blessing is about 3 tiles long, wide. I could be wrong. But with these upgrades, you get additional 5 tiles, which is quite a big place, quite a big, section of that it covers, which is quite nice if you're doing these big horse rushes or horse versus horse battles. And yeah, for it to cover that much tiles gives a nice boost to everything around it. Divine Light, this increases your warrior monk's Saint's Blessing, like I mentioned. I described what Saint's Blessing is, giving the rest of the group a buff. It increases by 10 seconds. Now the default for it, I don't know, I think it's like 5 seconds the default, Saint Blessing default. So this pushes it up all the way to about 15 seconds, which is quite nice, especially if you have that prolonged battles. Um, something else that I find helpful also is this Boyanos Fortitude. It's something that you can get at your what's that not the barracks, what's that thing called where you get your upgrades, guys? I'm getting old here, so my memory keeps going wrong. Okay, let me just see find this thing. Yeah, so your blacksmith. So you can get these get this Boyar's Fortitude, which is quite nice. It increases your health for all cavalry, including the warrior monks, including normal cavalry by 25 by 25 plus by plus 25. And especially if you look at the more normal one, that'll push you to 295, right, for your most elite knight. And you'll see that there's some other civs out there that has 330 for their most elite knight. So it's kind of almost like if you're playing against those type of civs with strong horse civs, to get this one it does really help in that long game to keep you matching them. Saints Veneration. This is quite cool because there is an upgrade that already gives you um, a buff to increase the total RUS health by 25. So for the Saints Veneration, it also increases the Warrior Monk's health by 100. So if you gather these two, it could potentially push your Warrior Monk up to 125, which if you look at your Warrior Monk, um, default, they're sitting on 190. So that puts them on additional 125, so you're on like what 300 and 30 something, which is really pretty cool. 290 plus the extra 25, 315 or so. I mean, that's quite a nice buff for your warrior monks, getting these two and put them alongside your knights. They don't have a particularly good armor and so forth, but putting them alongside your knights to give you that extended saints blessing, I think it's good for you to do that. Right. I'll come back. I'll talk about one more of the knights things here quickly. This knight pole axes. Now that pole axe, if you look at that icon, that looks very familiar, right? So if you typically go to your university, let's just find it here. Jeez, struggle to find these things. Yeah, man, what's going on, man? Let's go to your university quickly. Yeah. So you see this one. You typically see this one under your university, and that's particularly for your melee units. But the nice thing about the pole axes, you'll actually find it under the stable, and what it does is it just equips your knights with pole axes that increases their damage, their melee damage by +4. Now they've already got the 29 melee damage by default, which is largely in line with most of the other horses out there or knights out there. But to give them this extra buff, is very cool. Is very cool. And on top of that, you can add, your melee infantry. Army tactics, I think this is also a melee attack, so that can, sort of give them an increased damage. Of is it increased 15% damage as well? So you can do the math on that. And it does sort of give your knights a bit of a boost. Now you've got the warrior monk saint blessing together with these guys, together with the fold axes. You can have a very strong knight serve with RUS, but it does require you to get all those upgraders. Okay, just looking at something else. The RUS has also got those horse archers and the Strelskis. So horse archers, yeah, similar to the kanjis that you get with Ottomans. Simply just an archer on a horse. I'll go down this breakdown later. And then the Strelskis is pretty much replaces the typical hand cannoner. Now it says you're the most powerful ranged infantry with a reasonable melee capabilities. I think what they've got is they've got a melee that they can do, when they initially rush into, and after that, or when you rush into them. Otherwise than that, they've also got the typical gun. And the cool thing is they increase their attack speed while they're standing still. So yeah, good if your enemy's right on top of you and you wanna um, sort of just stand there and defend. Now, the thing that's cool about the stealth keys is, guys, I need to end this stream, so I think I might do a part 2. Yeah, the cool thing I like about the stealth keys is that they actually cheaper. If you look at them, they cost 1990. They do have a 38 hand cannoner attack damage. You can see that there, and they've got a health of 130. They're 1990, which largely is not too bad of a cost. Now, if I look at any other serve, let's maybe go, I don't know, any other serve, not Ottomans because they've got Janissaries, but let's go to like English, I think. If you look at English's hand cannoners, they 120, 120, 130 health, 38 hand cannon. So these normal hand cannons are a lot more expensive. 38 damage on attack and 130 health. Okay, 38 on attack, 130 health. Stealth keys, 130 health and 38 on attack, but they're cheaper. So they're relatively the same, but they're cheaper. And I think that's the nice thing also about these stealth keys. You can pump out a bit more than what you can for other servers with that expensive fee that they've got. I won't go into the ships. You guys can read this one. I don't play a lot of a ship game, so you can check that out. But they do have a nice ship setup. I'll go over that maybe in part 2. The other one I want to talk about is mounted training. So these are specifically for your horse archers, which I play a lot with. And basically what this does is it increases their weapon range by +1 and also gives us gallop ability, which actually allows them to move a bit faster for about 8 seconds. Right. Yeah, so look, I'll cover a few others in part 2 because one of the things that I'm going to do is when I sort of just driving around the mall or out somewhere and I want to understand, give a refresher on what the breakdown is of the server's unit composition, then it's nice for me to just go into this video without having to sort of open the game or something and try and remember, okay, this is what I get here, this is what I get here. So I want to do this one in part 2. I'm out of time now, but I think, yeah, I've covered the basics of the unique capabilities of the RUS serve. So if you've watched this and enjoyed it, yeah, that's great. Cool, man. Anyway, cheers, guys. Thanks so much. I'll probably be the main why watching this video, and then part 2 will come shortly after, probably later today. Cheers, everyone. Bye.